Right now, I mean, it's sort of interesting, and I'm not quite sure if this is a Republican attempt to seem reasonable, to keep a guy like Chris Murphy from getting out ahead of this. Maybe I'm not quite sure. I don't know if it's because we have an impending massive catastrophe in Yemen with a famine that has been unrivaled in this century, within a century, not even in this century, within 100 years. And maybe just killing and dismembering a Washington Post columnist is just a bridge too far. Incidentally, Donald Trump floated the idea of a rogue killing. He didn't want to get into the mind of MBS, but it might be a rogue killing, I think he said the other day. And then apparently the Saudis were leaking that they were contemplating now pretending that it was a rogue killing. Despite the fact for the past 2 weeks they've been insisting that Kashoggi left the embassy, which is a weird thing to circle and square. It's also weird, too, like, oh, my God, we accidentally killed this guy while we were torturing him before we rendered him. So what do we do to make up for it? Oh, I know. Let's chop up his body into pieces. Apparently, that's the line from the White House and from the Saudis. No word on what Thomas Friedman has to say about this, but here is Lindsey Graham. Understand, put aside the issue of killing a journalist, put aside the issue of our support for a brutal bombing campaign of Yemen, where, incidentally, as a result of Trump loosening the restrictions on targets as some type of fig leaf to protect citizens, the number of citizens that we have killed has, I think, doubled. Put all that aside, this isn't a personal offense to Lindsey Graham.
Saudi Arabia, the Secretary of State is heading over there now to try to get some answers about what happened to the Saudi embassy inside Turkey. You know what happened, who's to blame?
Well, I know this. Nothing happens in Saudi Arabia without MBS knowing it.
Who's MBS?
He's the 33-year-old crown prince who jumped over other people. He's the son of the existing king, and I think he's on a bad track. I can never do business with Saudi Arabia.
I love the idea that he has an issue with him jumping over other people, as if this is like some type of democracy or something, right? Like he didn't follow the proper line of ascension to the dictatorship.
It's also that was a positive for him when people were writing fluff pieces, that he wasn't fitting with traditional monarchy protocol because he was a bold reformer.
The only man for the job.
He's completely disruptive.
He's very disruptive to the Saudi monarchy. That's why he threw a bunch of his relatives in jail. And that was reported positively. Like, look, he's being serious about corruption versus, I wonder why like a young, aspiring, unhinged autocrat might put uncles in detain them.
Creative destruction.
Business with Saudi Arabia again until we get this behind us.
Right. And what does that mean?
That means I'm not going back to Saudi Arabia as long as this guy's in charge.
So you're saying the Crown Prince has to leave?
It's up to them, but I'm not going back. I've been their biggest defender on the floor of the United States Senate. This guy is a wrecking ball. He had this guy murdered in a consulate in Turkey, and to expect me to ignore it, I feel used and abused. I was on the floor.
Pause it. So if I understand Lindsey Graham correctly, all the other things that MBS was considering when he was going to kill this guy, putting aside everything that's happening in Yemen, according to Lindsey Graham, that MBS didn't stop and say, what will Lindsey think about this?
That's what Kashoggi should have said to the guys who were torturing and murdering him. That this would be very disrespectful to Lindsey Graham. Please stop.
I feel used and abused. I was on the floor every time defending Saudi Arabia because there's a good ally. There's a difference between a country and an individual. The MBS figure is, to me, toxic. He can never be a world leader on the world stage.
So what does the president do? Sanctions?
It's up to the president. But what I would do, I know what I'm going to do. We're going to sanction the hell out of Saudi Arabia. You know, We deal with bad people all the time, but this is in our face. I feel personally offended. They have nothing but contempt for us. Why would you put a guy like me and the president in this box after all the president has done? This guy's got to go. Saudi Arabia, if you're listening, there are a lot of good people you can choose, but MBS has tainted your country and tainted himself.
Like who? Who to replace him?
That's up to them. It's not my job.
But
This is so bizarre because Lindsey Graham is literally going on trying to pitch to the president what he should say. That's what's going on here. I mean, we have I don't want to say a 5-year-old. I think it's closer to a 4-year-old in the White House. And Lindsey Graham is sitting there trying to just model behavior for Donald Trump. But look, the bottom line is Lindsey Graham has laid down the gauntlet, ladies and gentlemen. He is not going back to Saudi Arabia because that guy has embarrassed him. And we know when Lindsey Graham says something, his word is his bond. This guy is not the type of guy. This is not no fair weather senator. Let's play this clip. This is, I'm confused. Wait, this is from, just about a year or two ago. Okay.
I just don't believe Donald Trump is a reliable conservative Republican. Good luck with Paul Ryan trying to find a conservative agenda with this guy. And I don't think he has the temperament or judgment to be commander-in-chief. A lot of my colleagues will vote for him enthusiastically. Some will hold their nose. I just can't go there with Donald.
But Senator.
Oh, and now he's his biggest fan. So
now he's literally one of his prime advocates in all of Congress.
So would you say Lindsey Graham is going to be in Saudi Arabia by early December, or do you think he'll wait until mid-December?
Yeah, he seemed really peppy there. So, but on the other hand, you know what? It's going to depend on how savage the winter is in D.C.
That's
Saudi
right.
has nice weather in December.
I will reserve judgment to find out if it gets rainy and cold.
Just keep me in the loop. Just keep me in the loop on the weather forecast.
All
3
right.
months from now.
No one can do what MBS is doing.